And what we can control is our behavior and our actions. What we cannot control is the behavior and actions of others.
Right.
So we would limit our frustration, disappointment, discouragement, being upset at the people.
Yeah.
When we realize that all we can control is us. That is the way this world is. And the moment we accept that, and we'll talk about some of the influence we can have on others, but they still got to make the decision to change their own behavior. They still ultimately have to make the decision. Like that young lady at the first coffee shop who just refused to admit that you didn't ask for 2 extra pumps of whatever the syrup was.
Hazelnut.
I can't.
Go ahead.
Why? First of all, why do you remember that?
Because that's what I ordered.
If you're a go-getter, faith-driven and family-focused and need to break through to your next level, this is the podcast for you. Your self-talk can reshape every area of your life. It's time to dream and think big. Welcome to the Self-Talk Experience with Darnell and Tracy Self. It's time to elevate, baby. Let's get into the show.
Hey, what's up, Self-Talk Experience family? I'm Darnell Self, and this is my co-host here, Tracy Self. What's up? We are here with another episode of the Self-Talk Experience, where the things we say to ourselves, our self-talk, about ourselves, eventually will determine what and even who we attract for ourselves. And this is important because we have so many conversations with ourselves every single day.
We do.
And I watch people all the time attract exactly what they think about most. Good and sometimes bad.
I know. I do it myself.
I know. And so this is why we have this podcast, so that we can start to be intentional about practicing better self-talk, and eventually it becomes a habit. And we start to notice things that aren't healthy in our own self-talk. We catch ourselves. And I have our audience send us notes or you comment. And so we thank you for all of that. And today we're going to talk about some experiences that we've had over the past couple of days.
Yes.
So we just got back.
It's been a crazy couple of days.
It has. We just get back from New York yesterday. And so, of course, this is Thursday because we drop every Thursday right here, whether you're listening on audio or watching on our YouTube channel. We appreciate you. But over the last couple of days, we were like, man, because we're so intentional about our self-talk, we're really being tested.
Yes.
And the last couple of episodes, we were talking about, you really can't control everyone's actions, but you can control how you respond to them.
Yes.
And sometimes people don't take responsibility or not accountable for their own actions. And it's frustrating because one of our episodes in the past, we've talked about how, we want from others what we would do.
Right.
And it leads us to disappointment because not everybody's going to do what we would do. So I wrote down some things today, but why don't you start off, though, talking about some of the experiences that we had on the way to New York and while we're in New York. And I thought, oh, my gosh, this is an episode because I really had to be intentional about my self-talk to respond in a way that I thought was healthy for me because I had some big assignments, right? Some meetings while I was there. And I was like, I cannot allow this particular situation or situations to distract me from my focus. And I think this is what happens for a lot of people.
It's very easy.
And we've talked about that. So let's talk about a couple of these stories and hopefully help our audience out with some better self-talk.
Well, we were talking about 2 days ago. We were at the airport and I went to get coffee. I ordered the coffee.
Of course you went to go get coffee.
I ordered the coffee. Ordered both of us. The exact same thing. Ordered the coffee. So I get my order and it's not good. It doesn't taste good. It's way too sweet. So I was like, why is it so sweet? It was so sweet. So I go back and I tell the young lady, I say, hey, I ordered this coffee. I don't like it. It's really sweet. Do you mind making it again?
Right.
So she wasn't really happy that she had to make it again.
Right.
And she said, oh, well, it's sweet because you asked for double sweet. And I said, no, I didn't ask for double sweet, but either way, it's okay.
Right.
I just, want you to make it again. She said, yeah, I'll make it again, but that's what you asked. I made what you asked for. So now I'm triggered. So now my self-talk is like, okay,
right,
she's wrong. And I just wanted her to say, sorry, I'm wrong because I know what I ordered.
Right. And I think the reason why you wanted her to take responsibility was not so much because she was wrong, but because she was saying you were wrong.
I was wrong.
Exactly. It's one thing for someone just not to say I'm sorry and not take responsibility.
No, that's fine.
It's another thing for someone to point the finger at you and to blame. This is what people do. We're going to help out today because a lot of folks will put the blame on someone else and not take that responsibility. All right, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt your story.
Right. So now I'm getting a little upset. I'm like, you can't tell me, like, I didn't say that.
Right.
And I just couldn't let it go. So I pulled out my receipt and I took a deep breath for my self-talk and I went back. So when she said that the new order was ready, when I went back, I said, can you do me a favor and help me out? So when I order next time, I order right. Because if you see my receipt, this is what I ordered. So tell me what I did wrong with my order. And so she looked at the receipt and she said, well, I mean, that's not what mine said on my end. And I said, really? So where's your receipt? So I can compare it. And I was smiling.
Right.
I just wanted her to say
she would not.
She would not say she was wrong. She said, well, that's not what it said on my end. I said, well, that's kind of confusing because why would our receipt say two different things?
Yeah.
And I just kept smiling. And I said, so could you get your receipt so I could see what you had? And she turned around and she said, I mean, I don't know what it is. I mean, it's fine. You could just have those.
She just never took responsibility.
And yes. Yeah. And again, like you said, it's okay if she didn't want to say sorry.
Right.
But you told me I was wrong.
Right.
I definitely wasn't wrong.
Right. You guys can go back and watch another episode on that too. We talked about how folks have a challenge apologizing or saying they're sorry or even just apologizing. And, it's funny because we were reading stats about how a lot of businesses fail the first year and about half the first 5 years. And so, and I think the number one reason cited was finances.
Yes.
Money challenges, right? Which could come from a lot of different things, like the wrong help.
Right, because you're going to suffer financially because I'm not going back to that particular coffee shop.
Right.
And so then if I'm talking to somebody, I say, hey, maybe you shouldn't go there. So you're not going to make the money. Right. And you could go out of business if you don't have good word of mouth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. No. So, so a point for bringing that up is because today I want to talk about some philosophies that have helped me. And I wrote down several philosophies. I know you don't like how many, but I wrote down several philosophies that help to shape my attitude, which help to shape my actions, right? Because philosophies, how you look at a thing, shapes your attitude.
Right. So maybe that's perfect because maybe that'll help me reevaluate my response to her. But I thought it was great because I didn't get upset. I didn't let her get me upset. I just wanted her to explain it to me. Yeah. So maybe sometimes when you talk your way through things, you're like, you know what? I was wrong.
Yeah. No, I get it. And look,
and that's all I wanted her to do.
Everything happens for you and not to you, right? So it's opportunities to grow. And we'll talk about that today too. And I think all of us have opportunities that are presented that can allow us to grow. And we get better and better and better. And then we attract better and better and better. And that's why I'm so excited about the self-talk experience is that we all have an opportunity to practice. And it takes patience because it doesn't happen overnight. But to practice our self-talk. And as we're better at handling things, we start attracting better. Yes. And when we attract better, we actually have a better life.
Well, I don't know what my self-talk is because we've been attracting a whole lot of what happened to you at the hotel?
Yeah.
Right after that.
Yeah.
With getting the room.
Yeah. So I went up to the front desk to get my room. And because of my status at Marriott, they were like, hey, there's no upgrades available, but there's a higher floor. There's no upgrades available for king beds, but there's a higher floor. I'm like, hey, that's fine. So we go upstairs to go into the room and they're doubles. And I'm like, he just said out of his mouth, king. So go back downstairs and he wasn't available, but a young lady was available. Right. I was like, hey, just, checked in a few minutes ago and we ended up with doubles and not a king. And again, she could have been like, oh, I'm so sorry for your inconvenience. It's okay. She didn't. And even though it wasn't her fault, on behalf of the property. Right. This is just what I would teach. This is what I teach in a culture with the people that I lead. Right. So, but anyway, so she's like, all right, I'll just, no problem. Put me in a different room. Got the keys, went up. The keys wouldn't work for this new room.
Right.
So I had to go back downstairs. And she didn't know, but I had a meeting to go to. I had to hurry up, put on my sports jacket. I had to steam it first and get to.
Right.
But she didn't know that. So it's not her fault that she didn't have the urgency that I had. So I went back down, and now the initial guy was available. So now he's like, hey, can I help you? And that, it could have been, maybe he just didn't remember me because I'd worked retail. And so you see so many people sometimes.
He definitely remembers you. It was 5 minutes.
It was 5 minutes.
he remembers
But he didn't say, is everything okay, sir? Nothing. He's like, can I help you? Like, I'm going to say, I just saw you 5 minutes ago, but I didn't.
Right.
It's like, hey, I had to switch my room because it wasn't a king. And then the keys were wrong. And he was like, okay, let me change that up for you. I got you.
But he was the one who messed up initially.
I know, but he never said it.
And the young lady who gave us the wrong key was listening, and she didn't say,
I know.
I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong key. You had to come back downstairs.
I know. We just talked about in another episode how sometimes people are dealing with some stuff you don't know about. And so they got other stuff going on. But we're still going to talk about how to steal, even if that's going on, how to have the right philosophies so that you can move through that. So we got it. Go upstairs. Everything's good. But no one ever said anything. It was kind of like, oh, well,
right.
Things happen.
Right. But when we were talking before, we were talking about people who may have been going through something and they weren't nice.
Right.
This is a little different for me because it's about taking accountability.
Yeah,
so the young lady, for me, it wasn't a point of whether she was nice or not. It was the fact that she wasn't accepting that she wasn't right in a situation.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's a little different for me what happened to you as well. You heard it. You knew you made a mistake. Say something. Right.
Yeah, but I'm telling you I can feel my own growth.
She wasn't mean. I
know.
So it wasn't something where, they may be going through something, they're not being nice.
Right.
You just aren't going to say
exactly. Yeah, and the help at the front desk weren't mean. It's just no accountability at all.
How about the lady when we were getting on the plane just now?
Oh my God. See, I'm telling you guys, look, it was like New York was on another level.
I was like, what is happening?
I'm like, man, this is shaping our
because
episode.
of our self-talk, we kind of laughed about it, but then we're like,
that's what I'm saying. I refuse to have anything steal my joy, steal my peace. I was like, look, I'm here for a reason, a purpose. And I'm taking responsibility for my peace because I knew what I had to accomplish while I was in New York. And I just could not afford to be bitter, upset, frustrated. I refused. My self-talk wouldn't allow me to get there, which I'm so thankful for self-talk.
Right. I was just mad because I really wanted coffee.
I know.
I was more upset about that than her.
I know. So hold on, what happened? Oh, so on the way back from New York, we walked up to the gate. They had already boarded priority, which we had priority boarding. So they were on general boarding. Mm-hmm. But I walked in the priority lane, and she's in the young lady at the gate was like pointing like over there in general boarding. I guess
didn't even say anything.
She didn't say it. She just did like that. So I said, priority. And she's like, give me your phone so I can, your boarding pass. And never said, oh, I'm sorry. Or never even said, oh, are you priority? Because it's a priority lane. Right. Like I am. So she could have said, seeing me in priority lane, why did she assume I was wrong instead of assuming I was right? This is my point. She assumed I was wrong and didn't assume I was right. It's the way I looked. It was the way I dressed. I'm not sure. And she never said, oh, I'm sorry, you're a priority. Yeah, come on up.
But she did tell me, enjoy your flight.
All right. So
she meant it.
So we could probably, I think it was a couple of other things too that happened in New York, but I think we'll stop. Yeah, because I remember the young lady who didn't take responsibility for making a hot coffee instead of a cold coffee.
Yeah, that was not nice
either. And so she took the wrong one. I said, are you going to throw that away? And she's like, yes. And I said, well, I can just drink that later if it's the wrong one. Like, I mean, she said, no, that was okay. Because sometimes people do that. And she just did like this, here. I'm sorry, I didn't make it cold. I know you want it cold. It was on. I asked for the right one.
Yes, and she didn't do it right.
So I wrote down because I knew we were going to have a podcast Thursday for the audience. I said, oh yeah, this is good. Let me write down some things, some philosophies that help me. I'm gonna go through them real quickly. Please interrupt, add some commentary, some color to this. And we're gonna help some folks out because this helps me out. And so I thought I'd write down the things that help me out when I'm dealing with people who don't take responsibility. All right, you guys ready for this? The philosophies that help me out when people don't take responsibility.
Okay.
You ready? So this is the philosophies you can adopt.
Thank you.
To,
Help me, please.
to handle these situations. All right. Handle yourself in these situations.
Yeah, or for me to be the one to be able to.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, because you can't change the behavior of others.
Right.
Right. So which is the first one, stoicism. So stoicism teaches us how to really focus on what we can control.
Okay.
And what we can control is our behavior and our actions. What we cannot control is the behavior and actions of others.
Right.
So we would limit our frustration, disappointment, discouragement, being upset at the people.
Yeah.
When we realize that all we can control is us. That is the way this world is. And the moment we accept that, now we'll talk about some of the influence we can have on others, but they still got to make the decision to change their own behavior. They still ultimately have to make the decision. Like that young lady at the first coffee shop who just refused to admit that you didn't ask for 2 extra pumps of whatever the syrup was.
Hazelnut.
I can't.
Go ahead.
Why? First of all, why do you remember that?
Because that's what I ordered.
You order a lot of different things though. You like lavender. You like rose.
Babe.
Okay. So number one, stoicism teaches us
Yes.
to focus on the things we can control, the behaviors we can control, actions we control, can control, which is ours.
Okay.
Not anyone else.
Got it.
Got that? All right. So don't focus on trying to make everybody else change. They have to decide to change, which I'll get to in another number. So that's number one. It's going to help you out.
Okay.
Like, you know what? I can't control them. I'm not their parent. They have to decide to change.
Sure.
Okay. Number 2, empathy. Now, we talked about this a little bit before. So try to understand the reasons behind the behavior. Now, this is typically when there's somebody who you have a relationship with.
Right.
Right? Because if you're just walking up to somebody, this empathy thing doesn't really work as much, but sometimes it does. Like the young lady who had just lost her mom.
Well, we talked about that in a previous
Exactly.
episode.
So sometimes you can be a little empathetic, and sometimes you may even say, listen, I hope you have a better day. You're like, I'm sorry, you're right. Today, so sometimes you can control that environment and start asking them questions like, what, you been here all day? Shh, girl, you have no idea. All of a sudden they open up. I'm ready. This is my 2nd day in a row. I've run a stretch. 2 of my employees called in. So sometimes doing that will assist.
That's interesting. So maybe the young lady that you were interacting with at the airport maybe isn't a type of person who won't take responsibility. Maybe she just was having a bad day. She usually would say sorry.
You never know, because there could be underlying issues and difficulties that the person is dealing with. So sometimes it's being empathetic, like, man, I pray that she has a better day. Hope that she's okay.
Okay.
Right? Not assuming that she's naturally bitter.
Sure. Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
So number 1, stoicism. Number 2, empathy. These are the philosophies that we can incorporate in our day-to-day life to help us to deal with those who don't take accountability and responsibility and they blame other people. Number 3, setting boundaries. And again, these are all things that we can control, by the way. Being empathetic, we can control. Not focusing on trying to make everybody else change their behaviors and actions, we can control. So everything we're going over is what we can control. That's what self-talk is all about. I can control my own self-talk.
Right.
So these are the philosophies that help us to say better things to ourselves.
Right.
Okay. So number 3, setting boundaries. Again, it's us setting the boundaries. His setting boundaries is personal to us. We get to set the boundaries. We get to determine what those boundaries are. So when someone doesn't take responsibility, doesn't take accountability, at that point, we get to decide whether the consequences are limited association or complete disassociation.
Right.
Right? Because if someone continues to play the blame game and you don't, it becomes a little frustrating, even if you follow all these things. So sometimes it's like, it's just not a match.
Right. Right.
I'm admitting to my challenge. I'm admitting I can be better. I'm admitting that I'm growing through this. And I thank you for your patience. But sometimes folks aren't willing to offer grace.
Well, they're not
sometimes
receptive.
They're not receptive. So you have to establish clear boundaries. And you may be in a place or in a season, you're like, it's not happening.
Yeah.
No one's taking responsibility.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you could take responsibility, but if the other person's not willing to take responsibility,
it's not as easy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not telling you to go and like diss all your friends, your family. Be like, you know what? I would listen to this self-talk podcast. Deuces. I'm out. Right. So sometimes you do have to limit it though, depending on where you are and the season in which you are in, because sometimes you're in a healing season and it's hard to heal when you're in an environment that continues to hurt you.
Right. That's true.
Okay. You wanted to say something?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Last one.
Okay.
I know you're like, how many?
No.
I'm trying to help.
You're
trying to help the people.
You're helping me.
Okay, good. So the last one is leading by example. We've talked about this too. A lot of this is crossover because self-talk is just that way, right? Philosophies are good philosophies.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's what's caught, not what's taught. And so what happens is that when you are around people who take responsibility, you hear them taking responsibility, you watch them taking responsibility, you start to say, man, I want to be like that. So it's exampleship.
Right.
It's like, wow, that was so good. I watched you do that. I watched you handle that situation. I watched you take the responsibility. And you did that, by the way. You said, hey, just so I know better the next time, how should I order so I don't say the wrong thing? Mm-hmm. So you actually put it on yourself, hoping you were encouraging her. You were hoping that you would encourage her to do the same through leading by example. Mm-hmm. She didn't follow your example. So, but again, that goes back to number one. Like you can't change her. You can't make her decide that right now I'm going to start taking responsibility.
Right. But you have to grow to be in that place because if it was years ago, I might have gone back and forth with her.
Yeah.
Instead of approaching her that way, say, hey, tell me what I should do. I may have said, no, you were wrong. Like I could have gone back and forth.
Yeah.
But because of my self-talk and the path of growth that I'm on, I took a different route.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think, you're absolutely
right. And
in
5 more years, I could do it even better.
Yeah.
But just being aware, self-aware.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I love it. And look, when you're around people like your friends, significant others, siblings, like family you're around all the time, you get to witness this. And if they are open because of the relationship, you can always give them the feedback. Right. Like, hey, look, I noticed how you handle that. And I just wanted to applaud you. Like that is, you're not the same person you were a year ago, because a year ago you would have said this and you did not. You did. And like, thank you so much. I've really been working on that. Thank you so much. I've really been intentional about that. So it's good to praise people who you're around and you see them working on the things that we're talking about, especially if you're like, hey, you got to check out the Self-Talk podcast. And they start watching it too. They start listening to it too. And you see that they're starting to implement some of the things that we share here, some of the philosophies. Right. Reward them, celebrate them, because it's not easy.
Right. And also being okay when you don't get celebrated.
Yeah.
To still encourage yourself to keep going.
Yeah.
Because it's hard when you feel like you're growing and you're not getting the feedback you think you should be getting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. And but you still
stay on the path anyway.
That's exactly right.
Right.
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. Don't allow
because it's about you inevitably.
That's exactly. I just did a post today and it said, don't allow what other people say about you or think about you cause you to say or think different things about yourself. Right. So you're in control of that.
Right.
So I'll just say this in closing of this particular episode, be patient with yourself. Yeah. It takes time for you to shift your own behaviors and actions. And it takes time if you're encouraging others to do the same thing. So if you're in a relationship with someone, you're like, listen, I'm in a relationship with someone who doesn't take accountability, doesn't take responsibility. Yeah. That doesn't happen overnight. And so do your best to continue to encourage them. And as you're setting boundaries and you're like, you know what, this is impacting a lot of other things though. But I would say be patient because it takes time to make this shift. Sometimes we make it sound easy. I know on this 25, 30 minute, podcast episodes that we do, but it takes time and it takes, a habit to shift things, and habits aren't created overnight.
And it's hard too, babe, to get to a place where sometimes you have to walk away.
Yep.
So even if it's for a season, sometimes seasons turn into forever, but sometimes in a season you have to find the strength to walk away.
Yeah.
From a relationship.
Yeah. Nope.
It's not easy.
I know. But but again, this is why communication is so key, because you don't want to walk away from a relationship that could be an amazing relationship, but no one was willing to say, here's what I feel like is challenging and causing the wedge.
Yeah.
And give that person an opportunity to actually say, you know what, that is my fault. And here's the reason why. Now that person gets a chance to be empathetic if they choose.
Yeah.
And give that person an opportunity to prove that they can change.
Right. But I feel like we're getting into a whole nother topic now.
That's not a good episode. Anyway.
Yes.
All right, guys, listen, this has been another episode of the Self-Talk Experience. And I hope that our New York experiences have helped you to become better with your own self-talk, thinking about maybe your own experience. You're thinking, man, I could have handled that better. Or, hey, I actually handled that exactly the way you guys said. And if you're not happy with the way you're handling things, try to adopt some of the philosophies we went over today. And perhaps those philosophies will shape your attitudes, and those attitudes will shape your actions. And you will be a great example to the people around you on how they can do the same thing.
Yes. And if a barista is rude to you, be patient.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Self-Talk Podcast with Darnell and Tracy Self. We hope you enjoyed. Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. And we'll see you next time. And remember, talk good to yourself.